end you. And I went upstairs and I packed a couple backpacks and I left LA the next morning with my friend and I never went back. Joe and I rushed out of that city as fast as we could. I packed as much of my stuff as I could and we just started driving. We were both genuinely scared for our safety at that point. So we decided to skip Joe's schedule.
This is why they call it Hollyweird.
Flight and just drive to Las Vegas. And then we were just gonna fly home from there. There was something that just felt comforting about being out of the state. Not to mention, Joe wanted a real briefing about what went down. Because I had just basically told him the cliff notes and begged him to believe me so that we could pick up and leave as soon as possible. For the first 2 hours of the drive, we primarily kept our heads on a swivel and just made sure that we didn't take any wrong turns to further extend this trip. There were a few cars that made me feel like we were being followed, but it was just my paranoia enhancing an A-type personality driver into a stalker. Once we were out of California state lines and into Nevada, we could both finally exhale. I felt real relief wash over me for the first time since I got kicked out of that party. We stopped about 15 minutes into Nevada at a pit stop. We used their Wi-Fi to book a hotel for Vegas that night, along with the plane tickets for the next morning. Once we had our escape plan fully booked, Joe just started laughing and I couldn't help but just start laughing too. We shared a lot of crazy stories growing up and we always seemed to find ourselves in sticky situations together. So it was just hilarious that his fun trip to visit me turned into this. It felt really good to laugh about it because it made me feel like it was finally over. We got back into the car to continue our drive and Joe playfully said, "So you have 1 hour to explain to me why we're fleeing Los Angeles over some half and half and a gear shifter before we get to Vegas and we make this trip work." I realized how bizarre this whole situation must have looked from his perspective. He flew in for a fun vacation and arrived to see his friend in a crisis. As I started to explain to him the series of events, things really started to click for me, especially with his input as a police officer. I'm going to recap some of the events that I had already explained, but with the conclusions that we came to together. Clearly, the man that invited us to the party was a predator, and we were just perfect targets for him. We were young kids with enough of a following on socials to influence all of the other young creators in the area. We had just made a major change in our life by moving across the country, and we were completely isolated from our families who we could consult with about important decision making. And we were in a bad financial situation because at the time, just having a following on the internet didn't equal revenue. We were perfect targets to be indoctrined into a system where they could have full control over our budding careers. And apparently that's exactly what cult-like communities look for potential members. Not to mention, we were in LA trying to make a career in entertainment, and it seemed like they held the key to our dreams. As I was explaining to Joe the invitation and how it showed up to my house, we came to the conclusion that this guy approaching us at that party was not a coincidence. He had to have been scouting us prior to the time that I thought that we just met by chance. The party itself was a trap as well. When I finally had the chance to process what he said to me about the slow drip is better than a flood, it really started